Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to take this moment to say thank you for listening to the Real Rescue Podcast. It means a lot to me that you enjoy these stories as much as I do. Since the start of this podcast, we've had a lot of support from all over the world. It has been amazing. Now, we have companies joining our team that also want to say thank you for all that you are doing out there standing the watch. These companies are offering discounts on their products as a way to support the rescue community and those tuning into the Real Rescue Podcast. Just go to therealrescue.com, click on sponsors, and see these incredible offers for yourself. This episode of the Real Rescue Podcast is brought to you by Breeze Eastern, the world's only dedicated helicopter hoist and winch provider. Axnes, because when lives are at stake and conditions are challenging, clear communication is of the utmost importance. SR3 Rescue Concepts, because you don't know what you don't know. And Versalifts, to be your best, you need to squat your best. Breeze Eastern, they dedicate themselves to our helicopter rescue world. Since the very first helicopter rescue in November of 1945, Breeze Eastern has designed and manufactured superior rescue hoist solutions. While much of the technology and the unique mission requirements have changed over the past 75 years, their commitment to the rescuers, the operators, and those being rescued has not. Contact them today by visiting them at breeze-eastern.com. The Axnes PNG wireless ICS system can bring cutting-edge wireless intercommunication system technology to any aircraft. The PNG system can be fully integrated into an existing ICS system or can be carried on and off as a mobile base station. They can go anywhere at any time on any aircraft. Plus, with the strongest and most robust waterproof handheld in the market, this system can take a hit and keep working. Their wireless intercom systems are designed to enhance situational awareness through improved communication capability. This system brings superior noise canceling technology to eliminate rotor wash and engine noise from your ICS. The Axnes PNG wireless system is currently deployed in more than 1,800 public safety, air ambulance, and search and rescue aircrafts worldwide. I have personally used the Axnes system in 4 different countries and on 5 different airframes. It is awesome. If you want more information, contact them today at axnes.com. That's AXNES.com. You just make sure you tell them Quinny sent me. SR3 Rescue Concepts is a training company that can help your helicopter training. They train daytime, nighttime, aerial firefighting, hoist, long line, fast rope, rappel, and more. They can assist your program with standardization and safety checks or just an FAA annual refresher. With the certified flight instructor pilots and experienced crew, they are ready to help your agency keep up to date with current techniques, rules, regulations, and equipment. Plus, right now, SR3 is offering 10% off anything in their web store with the promo code, all capital letters, Real Rescue, REALRESQ. Plus, they are offering another 10% from their partners Petzl and their equipment. All you got to do is send an email to info@sr3rescueconcepts.com. Mention this podcast, the Real Rescue Podcast, and they'll take care of the rest. And Versalifts. When you're at the gym working on your squats, building your leg strength for the next rescue mission, depth matters. If you're like me, getting below parallel on your squats is tough. Well, allow me to introduce Versalifts heel inserts. These gems have become one of my new favorite accessories in my gym bag. Simply place them into your regular training shoe, either on top or underneath the insole, and bam! You've got a heel lift benefit of a weightlifting shoe, but the comfort and flexibility of your regular trainers. So the next time your workout just has heavy squats, grab your V2 strength inserts. Or how about a run, pull up, push up, air squat, and another run? Grab your V2 endurance inserts. Or my own personal workout of running, clusters, and ring muscle ups. Grab your original V2 inserts and go crush it. Check them out today at vlifts.com or on Instagram at Versalist. And when you're ready to get a few pair of your own, make sure you get your 10% off with the Real Rescue discount code. Squat well, friends. Coming up next, we've got another U.S. Coast Guard rescue swimmer brother. His stories, yet again, do not disappoint. We go over about 5 cases out of his career that he's done. And the greatest part about it is we have an amazing debrief afterwards. You know, these are big rescues that were impactful to him, and he was here to share his story, really dive deep into those stories. We had an amazing debrief with a lot of them. So I hope you guys enjoy and learn a couple lessons from it. So please welcome our next guest, United States Coast Guard rescue swimmer number 646, Mr. Bradley Bagage. My name is Jason Quinn. I am United States Coast Guard rescue swimmer number 500. These are my rescues and rescues from those of us that put our lives on the line every day so others may live. This is the Real Rescue Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Real Rescue. Today I've got another brother with me. I'm so pumped, dude. I love it when Coast Guard swimmers come on, man. It's just, man, I love the stories. I love the brotherhood. It's just everything about it. Something special, man. It really is. So today, United States Coast Guard rescue swimmer number 646, Mr. Bradley Bagage. What's up, dude?
What's going on, Quinny? How you doing, brother?
Dude, I am fantastic. And you and I have some stories to talk about.
We got some good ones.
Yeah. Like, as I was reading all your stuff, I'm like, this is going to be a long episode, and it's going to be totally worth it.
It could be. If I'm dragging on, just tell me to wrap it up. But yeah, we'll get some good information out there.
No way. I want to hear like every fine detail, man. This is why I do this. I live vicariously through everybody, man. It's awesome. So, well, I'll tell you what, man, before we get going too far, if you don't mind, give a little background about who you are, where you're from, and how you became a Coast Guard rescue swimmer.
Yeah, I'm Brad Bagage, rescue swimmer number 646. Graduated AST school back in 2005. Before that, I was on the Coast Guard Cutter Diligence out of Wilmington, North Carolina, and joined the Coast Guard in 2002. So I was on there for just over 2 years, kind of waiting for school. But before that, my journey kind of led me in. My dad was a Coast Guard pilot, and he was a Navy guy first, and then lateral over to the Coast Guard. Yeah. So he was a fixed wing guy, so flew the C-130 Gulfstream, and then he actually taught at ATC Mobile right before retirement on the Falcon. So then I was born in Mobile, only 3 years before his retirement date, and then he got on with the airlines after that. Fast forward a few years, my older brother went in the Coast Guard, and he just did 4 years. And then he got out. He went in 96 and got out in 2000. So right before I was about to graduate high school. And he kind of told me, he said, Brad, you don't know what you want to do after high school. You know, he's like, Coast Guards, it's been pretty cool to me, man. It's been a fun time. He learned so much. He only stayed in for 4 years, but it gave him a ton of experience, and he did kind of the more law enforcement thing. And so he's a police officer now. So he used all that experience he got in the Coast Guard and kept continuing going. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much how it started. It was, hey, you don't know what you want to do after high school, and Coast Guard's a good bet. So I had no idea what I wanted to do in there. I think I looked at pretty much every rate. When I went to the boat, of course, I was looking at all the boat rates on there, BM, MK, HS, just anything really. And then we had a 65 come land on the back of our boat. And we had a pilot there that started telling me all about the AST rating and stuff. And I started to get pretty pumped up about it. And I had swam growing up, played sports, all that stuff. So swimming was no stranger to me. And I was just a small guy, still am. So I kind of I was like, whatever. I had this image of swimmers being, these 6'5" muscle dudes, and I was like, there's no way I would actually make it through. Yeah. And then this pilot was like, no, dude, it's actually the small ones I see that are in shape that make it through. He's like, muscle muscle don't float, man. Muscle sinks. So,
Nope.
yeah. So I was like, all right, well, I started training, put my name on the list, and had to do like an ASVAB, one of the single ASVAB test scores over again to get that higher. And then, I got accepted to the Airman program in Elizabeth City. So got off the boat and went there and did my 4 months in East City, and then went to school right from there, and then got stationed right there for my first station. So that's kind of how
Awesome.
my journey led me into the Coast Guard right there.
That's cool, man. I like that. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Was dad upset you weren't a pilot? Just gonna ask, like.
No, I think he was pretty pumped that at least I went the aviation route.
Yeah,
He was
yeah,
just
yeah.
pumped that I went in the Coast Guard, because he was telling me I mentioned, I think, like the Marines or Army or something, and you could tell he got real like,
It's
well,
like,
I
oh,
don't know.
okay.
Yeah, like you're
Sorry
gonna be
to
shot
Marine Corps
at.
and everybody else.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I
Oh
think this
man.
was right after 9/11 happened in 01. So when I came in 02, I think he knew that if I put Marines or Army, I'd be gone and I'd be overseas.
Oh
So
yeah.
he knew the Coast Guard was a real good bet for me, and yeah, it's been awesome
Cool.
career so far. So
Yeah, because you've been in for you just actually mentioned to me like 20 years. You just hit 20 years in the Coast Guard.
yep. So join, yeah, July of 02. So last July I hit 20 years. It's crazy. It's
Dang,
flown by,
man.
man.
Like a
It's
blink.
absolutely flown by. Yeah, it's crazy. Each tour, it's like, I don't know. You look back at it when you transfer your new unit, you're like, man, I don't even remember what happened. You remember like the friends you made and a couple cases, but you're like, dude, that flew by 4 years. And you think back to like high school, and high school was like an eternity, right? When
Yeah.
you
Oh
think of
yeah.
like the 4 years you spent in high school, and you're like, man, and to think like, oh, I did 4 years in Houston and North Bend, and it's like, man, I don't even remember hardly anything anymore. It's
Oh
nuts.
my gosh, I love it, man. I love it. Yeah, well, congratulations on hitting 20. So that means you're either A gonna test up or B retire. Oh, you know what? We're not
It's
telling
man.
anybody what you're gonna do. Keep that on the down
Okay,
low. Yeah. So I'll tell you what, man. If do you remember your very first rescue when you got to E City?
I do. Yeah,
Ooh,
I
all
do.
right. What do you got?
So it was an easy one, super easy, and it was probably the best case to start out on. Bright sunny day. I think it happened kind of right when it was springtime. So it took me a little bit to get qualified. Got there, I think in like, yeah, July or August, reported. And so we went through Hurricane Katrina in September. So the whole air station was,
Gone.
everybody was gone. Yeah, there
Yeah.
was no help. Every time I tried to go to someone
And
for
you
sign offs,
weren't
they were like,
qualified yet.
I hadn't been to EMT school. I didn't go to
Ah,
EMT school
ah.
until October, I think. So September, whatever hit, I think we just had or about to have our anniversary, I think, of Katrina. And yeah, I just sat and watched everybody do work, and I turned around planes and inspected Aussie gear and stuff, and I was just completely FOMO. And I was glad I was there to help out, but dude, to see those guys get back and tell the stories that they had, I was, man, I wish I was there. They thought about
Um,
sending me. They were like, well, we could at least use you to be able to hoist down and get people, and then like we put you with another swimmer and to be able to do EMT stuff. So um, but that didn't happen. So anyway, so then the holidays happened, went in, still getting stuff signed off, getting my flights done and stuff. But so yeah, it was around, I think, like March or something. I'd gone to AHARS, I think, in February.
that's
And I
advanced
came.
rescue swimmer
Yep,
school.
yep.
Do
Back
they
then
still
it
call it or
was.
advanced air crew? What do they call it now?
So back then it was Advanced Rescue Swimmer School, so it was like ARS, and now it's AHARS, so Advanced Helicopter Rescue School. So it's
Right
open
on.
to, that we're not just pinpointing rescue swimmers. It's not just rescue swimmer training. It's for pilots. It's for flight mechanics. Everybody.
Awesome.
So
And I
so
highly
yeah,
recommend anybody go to that training. It is unbelievable.
hundred
Yeah.
percent. Yeah,
Yeah.
best
And
training in the
that's
Coast Guard right there.
it is amazing. And that's for all aircrew positions because there's stuff you see there and you're going to do that is nothing like you've ever
Yeah,
seen or done before. And
and
big waves,
and
breakers, caves, cliffs. Yeah.
yep, and
Oh,
urban
it's
and inland now. We added that just this past year.
perfect.
So Yeah,
Oh,
we're adding all
even
of it.
better.
So yeah, my first case, it was a catamaran. It was one of the little tiny ones you could rent, I guess. And it was two people, and it capsized about 7 miles off the coast of, was it the Outer Banks out there, either Kitty Hawk or something. And one of the ocean rescue guys had already gone out 7 miles and picked up the lady off there, and then brought her back. So we only had one more guy to pick up. And so the water temp was still chilly. I was in a dry suit, and he was just in board shorts, no shirt, just a life jacket, And the water temp was still, yeah, I'd say in the 50s. It was just the first day where it was like high 70s, 80s, springtime. So we couldn't hoist him directly off the catamaran. So I had to get him in the water. So it would have been the perfect case to do a free fall on, and I opted to not do a free fall. And I'm still to this day, I've never free falled on a
Oh,
case before. And I
dude.
was like, no, it was like a perfectly, sunny day, like hardly any seas out there, a little bit of wind, and I think that's what capsized them. But yeah, it'd have been perfect. But yeah, I did a harness, just down, swam up, and he was like, yeah, I'm fine. Just the jet ski picked up my wife. I just need to go back. So I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna get you in the water. It's gonna be cold, and got him in. I just remember him letting off a ah. And it just took all of his breath away. And then I was like, oh, I felt bad. Probably, yeah, he's cold. He's cold as shit right now. So
You
towed
felt
him
bad for like
away.
a minute.
Yeah, for like a minute. Towed him away from the boat, put him in the basket, went up, took me up, and then we just took him, yeah, to like the local hospital right there in Outer Banks, and it was super easy, dude, super easy. But it was cool. Like just something to break me in, and thankfully it wasn't like a horrific case, and just something good little learning experience. But yeah, the dude was stoked. He's just cold. And I felt pretty good after it. So it's like, man,
Man, that's
got
awesome.
the first one done. Yeah.
What a great first case too. It's relatively easy. It's everything you train for. You swim up.
Yeah,
Hey, sir, are you all right? I need
that's
you to
it.
get in the water. And then you have
And
a
I
conversation.
don't think I yelled at him like they taught us in A school.
No, no, conversation. Hey, how
Yeah,
you
yeah.
doing?
Hey, yeah. Let me
I
get
hear
you
you
in
need
this
a
50-degree
ride.
water here.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Right on.
couldn't ask for a better one. The only thing I changed was I would have free fall, made it look cooler, But that's it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Next time.
Next time.
Uh,
If
well, thanks for sharing that, man.
yeah.
So you've had actually a pretty nice career as far as cases that you've had, and you've been recognized for quite a few. And I'd like to touch on the next four that
Mm-hmm.
actually earned you a few awards as well.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with I'm going to call it the easiest and then graduate and go a little harder. So we're going to go out of order based on where you were stationed and timeline wise.
Okay.
But the way the cases are, we're just going to get a little bit harder, a little bit harder, a little bit harder. And then you give us a rundown of each one of them. Is that cool with you?
Sounds good, man. Let's do it.
All right, I dig it. I dig it. So the first one I want to start with is out of Kodiak, Alaska. And here is the write-up. Citation to accompany the award of the Coast Guard Achievement Medal, Gold Star in lieu of second, to Bradley A. Pagage, Aviation Survival Technician, First Class, United States Coast Guard. Pagage is cited for superior performance of duty while serving as rescue swimmer aboard Coast Guard Helicopter 6004 on 10 November 2018. While on duty, Petty Officer Pagage received word that two hunters were in distress in the vicinity of Japanese Bay, located on the southwest portion of Kodiak Island. With gale force winds and driving rain present, the hunters lost their tent and survival gear to the elements and were subjected to hypothermia. Launching into the nighttime environment with known low-level wind shear and severe turbulence at the destination, Petty Pagage monitored the aircraft parameters and backed up the pilots by utilizing the infrared camera as they transitioned in plus 65-mile-an-hour winds and poor visibility. Once on scene, severe mechanical turbulence existed at the only suitable confined landing site as the Coast Guard rescue helicopter navigated a small cove with spilling winds that pronounced visible cat's paws. Pedasso Bogage located the survivors with the infrared camera and confirmed the condition of the landing zone as the crew used transient torque limits to make the landing and takeoff. While on deck, Pedasso Bogage assessed the survivors and helped them to the aircraft in gale force winds and heavy rain. Transitioning back to Kodiak, Pedasso Bogage treated the survivors for hypothermia as the crew successfully battled an electrical fire during the low visibility approach. What? This case resulted in 2 lives saved. Pedasso Bogage diligence, perseverance, and devotion to duty are most heartily commended in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Coast Guard. Dude, what? All right. So if that was an easy case, my goodness, what the heck? Electrical fire? What? All right.
So
let's back up. Let's back up. Yeah. You guys get launched. Go.
So yeah, we got word, and it was off a Garmin InReach, I believe, was how they made the call to us, that they were out on their daily hunt and basically came back. The weather was snot. Came back, and their tent and all the stuff that were in their tent, survival gear, all that stuff, whatever they didn't have just on their backs was gone, blown away in the wind. And so all they had was their Delorme and a little, their rifles, whatever they had in their packs. Not much, probably limited food. And I think they were supposed to be out there for another 3 days. So we got the call, came in there, with the mountains in that cove area, Japanese Bay, I think it was.
Yep.
The winds were coming from every single direction. We were seeing gusts up to 65, 70 miles an hour coming down. The cat's paws is what you look for, especially when you are coming into like a cove and you have high mountains on the side. So that's where you can kind of see where that wind shear is coming over the cliff, and seeing where those downdrafts are going to be the worst.
So cat's paws for all of us out there is it's like a big long stalk with a little brown knob on the top, and they're like kind of top heavy, so they have a really nice bow back and forth, and you really watch a nice wind line whenever that's happening. So
that's also a cat's paw, but it's also referred to as what the water does when you can see it in the water.
Way off. In that case, let's back this up. Brad, wait a minute. What the heck is a cat's paw? Like, what are we talking about here?
So it's an indicator on the surface of the ocean right there that you can see where that wind shear is coming off a mountaintop or a hillside or something. And when it hits the water, it makes these creations of waves on the surface, and you'd be able to tell, hey, that's where that downdraft is going to be the worst right there. So I don't know who named it cat's paws, but that's what the term is for on the top of the water right there to kind of tell.
Holy buckets! I just learned something new today.
I don't know. Yeah, you're thinking of probably. I know what you're thinking of. Those little things you see at the beach. Those little hot dogs.
Yeah.
Little hot dogs floating in the wind.
That's not it.
That's not it.
You know what? Thank you for clarifying.
No worries, man. I'm here for you. So
thank you.
But yeah, so there was cat's paws all over the place. The hot dog ones and the water ones, all in this cove. And so I'm up on the FLIR and start searching around from where they said they're going to be. We find them waving on the infrared camera. So we start thinking of how we can get down there. Hoisting was absolutely not happening. There was absolutely no way we would have been able to hoist with those downdrafts. As soon as we would have come down in altitude, we would have had zero, and this is in an MH-62, we would have had not enough power to do so, and we would have ended up in the water somewhere. So we had to find a confined area landing zone and put it down quick. And so we did find one probably about 50 yards from where they were at. Found a little spot, right? I think we had one wheel in the water. We were so close to the water's edge right there, because otherwise you have sheer mountains and you have trees and everything. So you had to kind of find something to land on. So we landed, and basically I walked out, got to help them, pack up all their stuff. It was easy on the ground. It was just the flying. This is more of kind of like a pilot's case. My job once I was on the ground was pretty easy, but things got interesting once we took back off. So we were heading out there around, it was probably around 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. The sun was going down right when we were pretty much packing their last bit of gear in the cabin was when night fell. And we had to get out of this cove now, with all these downdrafts and winds coming from all different directions. So I remember the pilot had an idea of like, hey, I'm gonna lift up right here, put the nose into this section of the wind, but then I'm gonna have to kind of flip the tail around, dip the nose, get enough airspeed to get out of this cove area safely. And so we lifted up, we start getting shook around like crazy all over the place. We gain enough altitude. We do what we say. You flip the tail around, I think putting it into like a crosswind or even a tailwind to then try to get enough airspeed to get out of there. All I remember from the pilot, and it was funny, I just flew with him the other day. He's at ATC Mobile, and we kind of were talking about this, and I just remember him saying like airspeed, 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 because we were, when you have to take a tailwind, you don't have any airspeed, you're going straight down, you don't have any lift anymore. So he just said, keep your airspeed up, airspeed, airspeed, airspeed. And we dipped that nose, and we were almost looking straight down at the water and just beat feet out of there as safely as we could. But that's probably the most turbulence I've ever felt inside a 60, because all those downdrafts were just coming from every which way, and it was nuts. So we got out of there safely. And little did we know that was only like the less interesting part of the flight, I guess you would call it. So we're flying straight and level home. It was probably another 25, 30-minute flight home. Probably about 20 minutes, 15 minutes before we're about to round the bend for Kodiak there, city. There's two huge bolts of look like lightning flashes coming up from the cabin, or from the cockpit right there. And then I was on the EOIR looking out for visibility purposes, and I lost my EOIR. The radar went out up front. A bunch of other associated equipment went off, but it was the windshield anti-ice went out, and we lost a bunch of stuff. So the flight mech goes up, and we still have the two patients sitting right there. He grabs the fire extinguisher, goes up in between the avionics rack and the pump right there, and in between the 60. And so he's kind of staging out with the fire extinguisher right there. I'm trying to calm the patients, and people telling them, hey, this is normal, we're good, and
it's okay.
Okay?
It's okay. It's only a fire in the helicopter. It's totally cool.
So, and then the pilot, who's the flying pilot, so we didn't have any anti-ice anymore, which helps with the fogging of the windshield. So it's nighttime now. All of a sudden, the windshield fogs up, and we think we went inadvertent, because he just doesn't know. He's up on NVGs, and all of a sudden he can't see. So he announces we went inadvertent IMC, which is basically you go into the clouds unexpectedly. It's not planned. And we're like, great, what else can we, and we didn't have a radar, next, so we can't pull up that see what kind of obstacles are ahead of us if we're about to head straight into a terrain or anything. So we know we're offshore. We know to the right of us is clear. So we peel more offshore and straight and level and file out there until we figure it out. We ended up, I had a beanie in my helmet bag, and I threw it up front, because then we found out that it was the windshield. So basically the pilot, the co-pilot in the left seat is flying with the pilot wiping his windshield every 5 to 10 seconds to make sure that he can still see. We declared an in-flight emergency. So they brought all the fire trucks out to the landing pad, everything. we eventually bring back on the co-pilot side anti-ice, because it was the pilot side that had the two flashes, and we brought his on to see if it would work, and it did. So the windshield started getting better. But yeah, and then we just navigated VMC conditions trying to get back to Kodiak, and we landed and was like, holy crud, like that was intense. Not only with, you know, the wind, we had to battle all that stuff inside the cove, and then coming home thinking, oh, we're sitting real good right now, straight and level, heading back to Kodiak's gonna be a good night. And then bam, bam, two flashes, everything goes out. It's like, nope, we're still in it. So yeah, we landed, crash crews came to us, and we were good. But we actually, the flight mech and I, we were talking, and we pretty much said, we're like, man, we don't, like, we're good for tonight. You know, we can't imagine getting called out for another case after going through all that. And Kodiak had backup crews on standby every duty night. So we told the pilots, we were like, hey, like we're good, but do you think like we can call the backup crews in? You know, like I think I'm good tonight, you know. And they're all like, yeah, we agree. So yeah, use them if you have them. You know what I mean? Like, why put yourself through that again? If
super smart, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, we ended up getting relieved that night, and I went home, and yeah, you're probably the same way. You tell your wife like, hey, yeah, like she was like, why are you home? And I was like, we had a case, and she's like, everything go okay? I was like, you know, it went all right. We got the guys, you know. And she's like, well, what happened? Why are you home? I was like, we had a couple things go wrong, and you know, without getting into too much detail, you tell them. But yeah.
Until so now, when she listens to this, and she's like, red light.
I tell her pretty much everything. It's just sometimes, you know, you can wait a couple days before you get into the nitty-gritty stuff. Yeah.
Dang, man. Wow, what a wild ride. Holy
yeah,
smoke.
And so I wanted to bring that one up just because that Kodiak, I mean, you know, if you've been up there, it can be like that on just a normal night, you know, like a Tuesday night. There's no like winter storm warning or hurricanes or anything like that. They don't call them hurricanes up there. They just call them like a Tuesday night. So if you ever look at the weather radar for up there in like the Gulf of Alaska and stuff, I mean, there's systems out there that look like hurricanes. And it's pretty normal to get 70, 80 mile an hour winds up there, and they just don't call them that. It's just a normal night. So that was kind of one of those nights where we knew, hey, it's pretty nasty out there, pretty snotty, and then you mix that with going into a bit like a bay area, a confined area. It's a recipe for some hard flying for sure. But the pilots did amazing. They kept it out of the water that night, which is all I could ask for.
Holy cow, man. I really like the fact that when he called inadvertent IMC, he knew to the right that there was open water, and so you're turning to the right. I love that, and I recommend that to everybody. You know, and you got to. Now there's always the caveat of, oh, what if there's an island? What if there's this? What if there's that? Is it always clear? Like the last picture you saw, you know, you're flying forward, so you have this good like view in front of you, so you have an idea based on what you just saw. It's like changing lanes in the car. You're like, oh, look, I've got an area, it's clear, and you're changing. Get out of the way of anything, and then reevaluate where you're at, what you can do, and get home safely.
Yeah, you're always evaluating your ORM, you know, and you're always talking about it, because you talk about inadvertent IMC in your brief in the beginning, and if you know you're going to be hoisting in a specific area, you say, all right, you know, if we go inadvertent IMC, we'll climb to, you know, 1,000 feet, we'll turn west, and we'll head offshore. But if you're going to an unknown area, you know, it's always constantly changing. So, and that was real important for them to know at that moment. Hey, I know that we're clear off this, because we could have briefed something different in the beginning, you know. But yeah, great flying, great pilots up there, the best of the best.
Dude, that is awesome. Oh man, thank you for sharing that one. All right, let's keep it
Yeah.
going because that you got me all riled up now. I'm ready to rock. All right, so the next one I'm going to bring up is out of Houston, and this is let's see, we got or you earned yourself a Coast Guard Combination Medal here. In addition to that, with this case, you and your crew earned the NHA, the Naval Helicopter Association Region Award, or for everyone.
For the region, yeah. So we
Nice.
were down there in that Gulf District area. So yeah, Air Crew of the Year for that one, which is awesome.
Which is awesome. So mad props to you and your crew. And I'll tell you what, let's get right into this award that you earned yourself here. Citation to accompany the award of the Coast Guard Combination Medal, Gold Star in lieu of second, to Bradley A. Pagage, Aviation Survival Technician, third class, United States Coast Guard. Pedastro Pagage is cited for outstanding achievement while serving as rescue swimmer aboard the H-65 6561 on 15 December 2009. As part of the crew on board the rescue helicopter, Pedastro Pagage was launched to investigate an emergency beacon registered on a 32-foot sailing vessel, Enchantress, 120 miles south of Sabine Pass, Texas. The Enchantress was last seen departing Houston 10 days prior with a lone 80-year-old male on board. Arriving on scene after transiting through 120 miles of thunderstorms and lightning, Pedastro Pagage expertly assessed the hoisting platform and obstacles and provided valuable input to the risk management decisions. The weather continued to worsen as he deployed to the water, battling wind gusts excess of 50 knots, 8-foot seas, and half-mile visibility to find a single elderly sailor suffering from conditions that left him unable to tend for himself. Without means to communicate with the rescue helicopter due to poor radio reception while clutching to the heaving vessel, Pedastro Pagage determined the survivor was unable to depart the vessel without assistance and managed to pull himself over a 5-foot gunnel to get himself on board. Understanding the rescue helicopter was dangerously low on fuel, he swiftly readied the survivor and quickly lowered him into the water for a hoist. Shortly after the survivor was hoisted into the basket, Pedastro Pagage was immediately recovered while lightning was striking the water within 200 yards of his position. Once on board the rescue helicopter, he assessed and cared for the elderly survivor who was suffering from both hypothermia and a concussion as a result of being trapped aboard his disabled vessel. Pedastro Pagage patient care continued as he kept the patient stable on 2 separate oil rigs while the helicopter refueled for the return trip. Pedastro Pagage medical training was invaluable in providing input for the following care and transfer of the survivor to the EMS personnel. His actions directly contributed to the saving of this sailor's life. Pedastro Pagage dedication, judgment, and devotion to duty are most heartily commended in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Coast Guard. God, dude, I freaking love this stuff. I love these write-ups. All right, brother. Pew, pew,
Oh
pew,
man.
pew, pew, pew,
Yeah,
pew.
yeah.
All right, launch the ready halo for a pew, 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 pew.
Oh man, so this one's a good one, dude, just because there was a lot that didn't get written into that specific award. So as you know, we did the NHA Air Crew a Year award, and I'll get into why we got that. So yes, this EPIRB was going off. This 80-year-old dude who I won't get into why he was out there or if he should have been out there or nothing, but he was out there. And I think we had heard later on, I don't know, with his EPIRB going off, I think his family was contacted too. And they said, oh, we didn't even think he was serious. He told us like 10 days ago that he was trying to sail, he was going to sail to Mexico. And that, like he didn't, he wasn't
awesome.
He wasn't all going on up there, you know,
That's
but
not awesome.
yeah. So anyways, so his EPIRB's going off. We get out there, we find the vessel, we're coming up on the radio. So, and I'll backtrack just a tad because the NHA write-up award has us. So we lost all fuel calculations heading out there. And
Do
the
I
thing
need to read that
about
one too?
we can get into it
All right.
here in a second. So the thing about Houston and being on 65s in the Gulf is when you do an offshore case, you depend a lot on oil rigs. So there comes to a point where you get so far offshore that you become committed to an oil rig to get fuel. You are past that point. You cannot return safely to shore. You have to go to an oil rig to get fuel. So I'll leave it at that right now. So we go out, we're past the point of return to back to Galveston or wherever we were going to get fuel for. Locate the vessel. We come up on the radio. We're trying to talk to him. He is very hard of hearing. So he just keeps saying, I'm not understanding you. I'm a little hard of hearing. So our pilot is literally yelling in the radio, like, do you need assistance? And he comes back and says, I think you're asking me if I need assistance. Yeah, I'd taken a fall and hitting my head a couple times, and I can't fend for myself anymore. So that's all we needed to hear. So I start getting ready in the back. There is thunderstorm squalls all around us, as from that write up with the lightning strikes. So we have about 10 minutes before the next squall was coming to us. And we also were pretty close to bingo because we're already 90 miles offshore and 65, close to bingo to the oil rig that we had planned to get fuel from. So I go down to the water, swim towards his boat, and I'm hanging on to just a line that's hanging off the boat right now. So I'm just kind of going up and down with the boat in the seas and trying to talk to this guy. And he doesn't, of course, want to get off the boat. That's his home. And he's like, no, this is my home. I'm good here. I'm just gonna wait for a tow. And I was like, sir, you are 100 miles offshore right now. I said, no one's coming out here to get you. I said, you're either coming with us or like, that's it. We're gonna leave, and who knows what could happen to you after we leave, you know? And so I finally convinced him. So that took that's another 3 to 5 minutes of trying to talk to this guy. I look behind me.
Negotiator right here. Yeah, what's up?
Negotiating. I look behind me, Quinny. The basket's already halfway down. Like they're like, hey, we gotta go. And so he goes, okay, all right, I'll come with you guys. So he's like, let me go grab my stuff. So he disappears, and I'm still holding on to this rope, and he's down there for another minute. Still don't see him. I start yelling for him, like, sir, nothing. Doesn't come back out. So I'm like, shit. I look behind me, basket's still halfway there. Like they're waiting. They're about to leave me if I don't get this guy out of here. And so I'm like, I gotta get on this boat. So yeah, I Spider-Man my way up this gunnel and get my hand on something up there that I was able to pull myself up on. The pilot can explain it a little bit better than I can. I can't even remember what I grabbed onto, but get myself on the boat. And I'm still yelling for him, and he's down in this little cabin, and he can't figure out how to connect his zipper of his life jacket. And that's probably what he's just been sitting there doing for the past 3 to 5 minutes, was trying to fiddle with his zipper. And I finally see him, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing? We got to go now. And he's like, oh, okay. And so I zip him up. He's got this big Pelican case with all of his stuff. I chuck that in the water. I take him arm by arm, we jump in the water and tow him away from the boat, get him in the basket and hoist him up. And they drop bear hook down to me. And that was right when that squall was coming in. So that was right when I was getting picked up. You can hear from like the hoist cam footage. They were like, whoa, that was a big lightning strike about 200 yards. And you see the screen light up. So we get him up in the helicopter. We think, okay, here's that other case where we think our job's done.
Hey, so real quick, did you get the Pelican case?
Yeah.
Okay, just gotta make sure we got it. You threw it in the water. I
Yeah.
didn't hear you go get it. I wanted to make sure.
Yeah. I was like, this thing floats. So threw it in the water. Yeah, I was towing him and his big old case, put him in the basket, put the case on top of him, went up. He probably just had snacks in there or something. I don't know.
Probably.
But so we're heading out to this oil rig that we thought had fuel on it. And mind you, we had that fuel calculation like EP. So we were doing everything, I think, by handwritten math, trusting the pilots up there. So they're doing the math and they were like, hey, all right, so we don't have a lot of fuel, guys. We're heading out to this oil rig. Well, Sector comes on the radio probably about 15 minutes prior to getting to this oil rig and says, hey, 6-5, whatever, we just got a hold of that rig. They don't have any fuel. So we're going to send you to this other oil rig. And it was even further away in the opposite direction.
Oh, geez.
So we're like, oh boy, okay. So we're doing the math, we're calculating everything, and they pretty much said to us on ICS, hey guys, like, here's the deal. I think we have just enough fuel to get to this rig, and like that's it. So we were heading to that rig. Probably about another 15-20 minutes. We get on scene. So I think I have my helmet off at this point. So I'm talking to the survivor, still like treating him. And all of a sudden, I just hear the flight mech just start cursing. I could hear him just fuck. And I'm like, what is going on? And he's just cussing. He's freaking out. And so I'm like, hey, and I like hit him. And he looks back at me and I'm like, what is going on? Why are you freaking out? And he goes, we have to ditch.
Holy shit.
And I was like, I kind of had that blank stare and I was like, come again? Like, what? He goes, we have to ditch. And he like pointed down at the oil rig. They had 2 helicopters, blade tie downs tied to the deck. There was no space for us.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I get up on ICS and I'm like, what is going on? He's like, we just talked to him. They said one helicopter is hard down, it's broken. And the other one, they can say they can get it airborne in like 20 minutes. And that's not enough time for us guys. So we made the call back to Sector that we're going to start making preparations to ditch. So that's a scary conversation to have.
Holy shit.
So we start, kind of preparing, doing a couple discussions about it. And then, so all those squalls that were in the area, some cleared. Jason, I'm not like a religious guy too much. But someone was looking out for us that day. So a squall like disappeared. And all of a sudden this unmanned oil rig we saw in the distance, it wasn't even on the chart as being like a place that we could go. And so we spotted it and we started just flying right towards that oil rig. It didn't have anybody on there. It wasn't, I don't even know if it was rated for our weight. It definitely didn't have fuel, but it was a platform for us to land on. So we put it down on that oil rig and we just shut down. And we're out in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico with, very limited fuel. We probably are down to 200 at this point, 250 maybe, because we had planned to land right there on that rig. So we hang out there for about 30 minutes and we wait for that other helicopter to get airborne. And when they got airborne, so we got in, we started up and pretty much just lily padded over to that other rig. And when we landed, so they were 2 pretty small helicopters that were in those tight spots. So we didn't know what the rotor clearance was that we had. We ended up landing, our left main on the 65 was probably about 1.5 feet from the edge of like the drop off of the oil rig, where we landed. And that was it. if we had come down a little bit more like to the left, like trying to land, like we would have gone wheel down, and who knows what would have happened. So it was crazy.
Good Lord.
So we shut down, we get fuel, and still that's why I was taking care of the patient on both oil rigs, still taking care of the patient now, pretending everything's fine, because I didn't, you try to hide everything that's going on within the CRN aspect of everything with the flight. And so you just kept saying like, oh, how you doing all right, anyway, got fuel and all was good, and we made it all the way back to Galveston, Houston safely with him on board. But yeah, it was crazy to hear the words, we're ditching, we have to ditch. It really, stands the hairs up on the back of your neck. And I use that as like an example now for guys that I do stand checks with in the fleet on the stand team, is like, what do you do if you have to do a planned ditch? Like, how are you going to do it? Are you going to have everybody in the cockpit, or everybody in the cabin, like go down with the plane? Or are you going to do 10 and 10 and the flight mech and submarine jump out with the co-pilot, and then the pilot's going to be the one that puts it in? Like, how do you go about doing that? Have you ever talked about that? So it's crazy.
And you've got a survivor. What do you do as a survivor?
And
throw him out?
And a survivor. Yeah. He's free falling with me, arm in arm again. So it's crazy, man. So yeah, we made it back, and then our flight mech, we had our blinders on and couldn't think about much else when we landed on that unmanned oil rig, that he left his LP-27, his survival vest, on that oil rig. So we landed on the other one to get
vest for anybody that doesn't know that.
Yeah. So we landed on the other rig to get fuel, and he's like, bro, he looks at me, he's like, and I was like, did you forget your life vest over there? He's like, yeah. I was like, why did you even take it off? I was like, what were you thinking? I was like, I don't know, man, I wasn't thinking. So I think it got retrieved. We got it.
Wow, man. Okay, I was not expecting that. I really wasn't.
Yeah.
Holy smoke. I'm going to debrief that just a little bit. I'm going to Monday morning quarterback that. And the only thing that I want to say is you have got to stay calm inside the aircraft. Like, and I understand stuff happens all the time. I've had cabin doors fly open on me. I've had, engine sputter on me. I've been left in the water because stuff happens. You have to keep your composure. You have to like, okay, you got something wrong. It's going to be a bad day, but keep your composure.
Yeah.
Say a little prayer regardless of whether you're a religious guy or not, because that one ring is right there.
It's crazy. Yeah. It like appeared like, I don't know, the beam of sunlight came down on it, and it was just, man. So someone was looking out for us that day.
No doubt. And I'm not trying to pick on your flight mech either. I'm really not. So please, like, for anybody listening, like, I'm really not trying to pick on him, but because I've actually been that guy in the aircraft too. I'm like, son of a, like, you're mad, you're angry, you're upset, you're scared. Like, you're going through all these emotions of like, what the heck is going on? You're like, seriously? Like, how do we get into this predicament? Keep your composure. Like, take that, as guys have come on here and said, take that tactical pause, take a breath, take 5 seconds, reevaluate, and then move on.
100%. Yeah. We joke around about it now. He's retired, but I think I was at his retirement. We chatted about that case again, and he laughs about it. He was like, oh yeah, I was cussing up a storm. I didn't know what to do. And
I get it. I totally get it. That's the thing.
Yeah. In my face too, when he said that, I was just, that blank stare that you give someone, you're like, huh?
What?
Like, did I hear that right?
And the fact of the matter is, I know he's not cussing out the pilots or anybody. He's cussing out, sector for telling you to go to this rig in completely the opposite direction. That failed to mention there's 2 helicopters on deck.
Yep.
Come on.
Yeah. or first sending us to one that didn't have fuel, so they didn't make that phone call first, and then sending us to another one without calling them. And yeah, I don't know. He probably just called and asked if they had fuel, and they were like, "Yeah, we're good. We got fuel." And then hung up the phone. Who knows? Who knows? I don't know. But it was only 5 lives in the helicopter that playing around with, but it's all good.
All right, I do have a total side story. So I'm coming back from I can't remember. We might have had a patient on board. I can't remember. I was in the Gulf of Mexico, and I was flying with Air Helicopter at the time. And so this is dispatch story. So this is where like to kind of stimulate the two, but they're looking at the radar, and we got thunderstorms all around us. And we call back to dispatch. I'm like, hey, can you give us a route? What do you guys see on your radar up there? And he's like, well, I got good news and bad news. He's like, all right, well, what's the good news? He's like, the good news is I'm not with you. The bad news is you're surrounded by nothing but storms.
Oh, no.
I was like, thanks, dispatch.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Would it make the matters worse?
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, back to you. You and your crew, well done. The fact that you had that all the way through and earned yourself the award, it's well deserved coming back from that one. Saved an aircraft from going in the water. Awesome.
Yeah. Got the guy off the boat, got him back to his family, and I think that boat ended up getting salvaged later on. So he got his home back. And hopefully he didn't do any spontaneous trips to Mexico after that. We didn't hear anything. So
maybe that's because he's in Mexico. I'm just saying.
He's probably in Mexico drinking pina coladas now.
Holy shit, Brad. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was a good one. Yeah, great crew. Loved it. We got a chance to go down to Pensacola a few months later to receive that NHA award. So it was pretty cool because NHA is a huge deal, So we went. I think it was at the aviation museum down there. They had a conference room where we went, and they had our hoist cam footage playing over on a loop during the whole like meet and greet where we're walking in. And they were handing out other awards that day too, but they just were so infatuated with the hoist cam footage, the lightning strikes, and the guy like going up in the basket and stuff, and they just kept playing that on loop. And it was pretty cool to go receive that award too. And
freaking awesome!
It was a good one. It was a good one.
Wow. And all right, and then we got another one. Like, all right, I'm gonna keep it going. Let's keep it going, man. Riding.
Yeah.
So your next one is in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, that I'm gonna go over. And I think you actually sent me and said this may have been like your second rescue ever.
Yeah, so we went over that first one out of the water, and this was still within my first year of being qualified, I believe.
Freaking awesome. All right, let's get right into it. So out of Elizabeth City, North Carolina, citation to accompany the award of the Coast Guard Commendation Medal to Bradley A. Pagage, Aviation Survival Technician, 3rd Class, United States Coast Guard. Pedestrian Pagage is cited for outstanding achievement while serving as rescue swimmer on Coast Guard MH-60 helicopter 6041, while assigned to Coast Guard Air Station Elizabeth City, North Carolina on 28 June 2006. At 02:30 that morning, the District 5 Command Center ordered the launch of the Ready H-60 to stage at Scranton, Pennsylvania for flood operations. The crew navigated beneath 200-foot ceilings in marginal conditions, including visibility less than 2 statute miles, through the Pennsylvania foothills and areas with numerous tall towers and antenna. Throughout the entire operation, Pedestrian Pagage provided insight, crew resource, and operational risk management input that ensured the safe prosecution of the highly demanding search and rescue case. Due to the crew's tenacity and skill, the Coast Guard rescue crew was the only SAR resource to reach the river valley that morning. Once on scene, 2 individuals were located in the 2nd-story window of a flooded apartment complex. Pedestrian Pagage quickly assessed the situation and determined that he could swing himself under the 4-foot overhang of the second-story building's roof while remaining attached to the hoist cable. Pedestre Bagage then straddled the window and helped the survivor into the quick-strap recovery device. Pedestre Bagage then gently rolled out of the window with the attached survivor one at a time to clear them of the roof. Once both survivors were aboard the Coast Guard helicopter, he ensured they received necessary medical attention. The Coast Guard helicopter then hoisted them down to a nearby highway to ground rescue personnel. Then the rescue helicopter next proceeded to where the raging river had washed out the road. 2 survivors had managed to reach a small island formed by the swollen river. During this demanding rescue evolution, Pedestre Bagage was lowered into the surging river and struggled through chest-deep water to rescue each elderly survivor. Once the survivors were on board the aircraft, he treated them for hypothermia, and they were lowered to the ground to rescue personnel. Pedestre Bagage's actions resulted in 4 lives saved. His dedication, judgment, and devotion to duty are most heartily commended in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Coast Guard. So, you're going inland a little bit there, bud. You're going to Pennsylvania.
Yeah. That was a weird call to get.
That's not near the coast. Scranton, Pennsylvania is nowhere near the coast.
No. So yeah, I'm sleeping up in the duty room in East City, and the beeper goes off, and they come up and say for flood rescues in Pennsylvania. And it was one of those things like, yeah, it's 2:00 in the morning. You're like, that's not right. What did they just say? You ever get called and have to call the comm center afterwards because you realize you're like, did I dream that or something? Like it could be, I don't know.
There is no way we're going to Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. No way I just heard what I just heard. But no, it was true. So there was a big nor'easter storm that dropped a ton of rain up into this little mountain town up there in Pennsylvania. So all these mountains, all the water was running down into these valleys, and there was 2-story, 2-story homes that all you could see was the rooftop. So we were heading out there, and they were expecting this to be like, I think the original call was that there was like 10s and 20s and 30s of people on their rooftops, like waiting to be rescued. We thought this was going to be Katrina part 2, And so we start heading up there. We were the first crew, and then it was actually Mario Batone was the second crew that came up there after us. It ended up being not as bad. There wasn't 10s and 20s of people on rooftops, but we did spot the first 2. They had a white T-shirt hanging out the window of their apartment complex, and we spotted them first. Trying to figure out, so their parking lot where their window was facing out of, you had power lines probably about 50 feet from that window, maybe like 100 feet. So we had a small gap of where they could put me down and try to get me to a little overhang roof first. That was kind of on the same level as their window. So if you can imagine, so I wasn't going to the very top roof where they had that 4-foot overhang, but I was going down to it was over like a 1st-story window. And so there was a little roof that kind of came out. So that's what I went down to. It was like precision hoisting at its best. I mean, the flight mech put me right on that little overhang. I had about 2 feet to hit without cable rubbing of that. And so basically what we had to do is he had to give me some slack, so we didn't have cable rub, and I had to jump from that little roof overhang over to their window and latch on and then straddle it without getting cable rub on the overhang. So I was able to,
holy cow, dude,
22 at the time, so I was young and limber and could do this sort of stuff. So yeah, I got to there, and there was a couple there, and they said they had been trapped all night, and they couldn't go downstairs. It was all flooded up to their 2nd story. So I thought, all right, well, not going to leave you here. We'll take you with So I had the quick strap with me, but then the guy was like, "Hey, can we have our dogs? Can we take our dogs?" And I was like, "Shoot, man, like you're making this real difficult." I don't know where are they? And I didn't notice, but he had a duffel bag on, and I just thought it was his clothes. And he just opens the duffel bag, and two little Chihuahua heads like poke out. And I was like, "Oh," I was like, "Yeah, if you just keep that on you, as like zip them up, yeah, we'll take the dogs, no problem." So he had a duffel bag with his two Chihuahuas. So I put the quick strap around him. I went ahead and just put the cross strap, the safety strap on, just for fun. And so basically, what I was going to do is reach over as far as I could to make sure that they could see my thumb. I mean, I could have come up on the radio too, but I just wanted to make sure they could see my thumb. And the plan was to, yes, just make sure our heads are clear and just roll out, but not create a pendulum swing too large to then go into the power lines that were over on the other side. So we were able to do that. And then we got the first guy up with his dogs. And then I did the exact same thing, went down to the overhang again, jumped to the window, and then got the other person. I think maybe I'd taken the female first. I can't remember, but yeah, so we got those two out of there. It was, yeah, good precision hoisting, great technique, and it's technique that we teach now and at the urban part of AHRS, is making sure that, because we do this exact same motion, we go into a window and we do the thumbs out, and we kind of gently start sliding out as the cable comes taut, and then come right out of the window, and it works like a charm. So
Oh yeah, I need to come hang out with you guys for a little while.
yeah,
I like that.
so it was a good technique to use, and it worked. Yeah, we took them over to there was a bunch of medical personnel staging out on a highway, and dropped them down, just lowered them straight down in a basket. And then we went out again searching for more people, and came across two elderly people. Their truck had been, like, we saw the nose kind of sticking into the raging waters, and water was just going around it. They had managed to get out of their truck, but they made it just to a little higher kind of gravel island thing that had formed with all these raging waters, and they were going pretty quick. And there was a swiftwater team staged out across this river from them, but it was long, it was big. There was probably, it would have been a pretty tough rescue for them. And so once they saw that we were on scene, they kind of stood off a little bit and watched us. So we couldn't hoist them directly from where they were at, because there was trees all coming over on top of their little island there. So I had to go down to this other little island part, and I had to kind of wade. I stayed connected onto the hook, but just walk across this chest deep. I'm losing my footing, trying to make it over to this part that they're at, and managed to get that done. And we did quick drops with them, and I had to kind of wade them out away from the trees. That way we could hoist straight up. But yeah, we got those two out of there, and it was a good day. But it wasn't as bad as what they originally said on the radio, which was good. But it was pretty cool to get to do the roof or the window rescues, and the raging flood rescues too. And yeah, like I said, that was like my first year of being qualified, and there was no Katrina, but it was still something. It was pretty cool to get to go do.
Yeah, yeah. It's all right. So next thing I'm gonna kind of tie all this stuff together right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, yeah, that was your second case that built
Mm-hmm.
just such a like a plethora of information for you for rescue and dynamics and how to treat
Mm-hmm.
one situation versus another. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Inland is way different. We train for
Oh
maritime
yeah.
all the time, and once you get into an urban raging flood environment, swiftwater, it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
And after or before Katrina, no one knew any of that. Really, we all kind of went out to Katrina and just kind of figured it out.
Yeah.
And although I wasn't a part of that, I saw a lot of hoist cam footage from Katrina, and heard the stories and talked to the guys that came back from doing it. And they all just had great stories and tips and everything from me. And so seeing the window rescue, I had actually seen a hoist cam footage, and it was Jeremy Carroll from Katrina doing a physical grip out of a window from a lady, and they actually brought them all the way up. The flight mech didn't realize that he was physical gripping, and they brought him all the way up. But I remember seeing that hoist cam footage, and so I had that in my head, like, and that's the thing is that's why it's so important to come back and talk about your rescues to the guys in the shop, because that knowledge can be shared. And just seeing that video and listening to them talk about it and CRM it and RM it and everything, and it was, I had a plan when I saw those two people waving their t-shirt out of the window. I was like, all right, guys, like, here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna put me down there. I'm gonna jump over. I'm gonna reach out, give you the thumbs up. I'm gonna pendulum swing out. Try not to throw me into the power lines right there, and we'll be good to go.
Dude, that is awesome. It's one thing I love about doing this too, is we get to share all this knowledge with so many people, and just get that out. That is awesome. Brilliant. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. You and your crew, like everybody, we can't do it alone. I can't emphasize enough. We can't do it alone. So it's a full team, full crew. So
100%. Like I said, it was such well executed hoisting to get me down to that one spot that I needed to go to get feet on that rooftop right there, and then make my way over the window. And they had to trust me in knowing that, I'm going to swing out and we're not going to shock load the cable. And it was just a lot of things that could go wrong in that situation. Power lines. I know that's been a mishap in the past of the cable hitting a power line, and
Graham McGinnis came on here and told us about it. My gosh.
And we used that video at AHARS when we started our urban section, because like you said, it's not a maritime environment. You're not just looking down at a normal boat and knowing that obstacles up and safety concerns on the boat. It's like, now you're involved with electricity and dirty water, and there could be alligators down in that water too. Like, if you're talking about Gulf and Katrina and stuff, you're doing F that stuff, I don't want to be waiting. I don't want to be waiting around any Louisiana water with alligators right by me.
Right up until you come up with one in your hand, you'd be like, "Who wants lunch?"
Yeah.
No, I'm all set. Dude, awesome, crazy, man. Yeah, Scranton, Pennsylvania. Who knew?
Pennsylvania. Who'd have thought? So
who'd have thought?
That was pretty cool. We went up there, and then when I came back, that was my first time like being interviewed. They had tons of news cameras all over the place in Elizabeth City, and like Mario and I got interviewed. I don't even think they did too much. They just kind of did oversight, flying to the area, make sure we had gotten who we had, but everybody made it to safety. And it was just those four, but better than 20 people in that situation, because that would have been a rough go at it.
Still so cool, man. So cool. Yeah. Awesome. Well done.
Thank you.
Another 4 lives saved. All right. Now I'm going to get into this one.
Yeah.
This one you earned out EC. So this is going to be a little longer story, and because there's a lot that goes into this. And for those that have listened to this podcast long enough, we had Drew Dazzo on here, and he was episode 104. So he talks about this case that he flew out of E-City and responded to a vessel that other helicopters had gone to. Well, you were one of those other helicopters that responded.
Yeah, first one.
Woo-wee. So we started talking a little bit about it in our episode, like between Drew and I, and one of the things I remember saying is like, you know what, I don't want to speculate on anybody. So, hey, whoever was on that, hey, come on, let's hear what happened. So, poof, here you are.
Here I am.
Yeah. So, I appreciate you being willing to go over this with me. So let me read the award up, and then, I look forward to hearing the after action with this one for sure. So here we go.
Let's get into it.
Citation to accompany the award of the Air Medal to Bradley A. Pagage, Aviation Survival Technician, 3rd Class, United States Coast Guard. Pedasso Gage is cited for meritorious achievement in aerial flight on the night of 28 to 29 October 2008 while serving as rescue swimmer aboard Coast Guard helicopter 6003. His crew was launched to rescue 3 people from sailing vessel Freefall that had been severely damaged in a violent nor'easter that was adrift 280 nautical miles northeast of Air Station Elizabeth City. While he clutched the first survivor and waited to be hoisted, waves crashed down on the empty rescue basket and frayed the hoist cable, rendering it useless. Realizing the repair delay would be significant, he swam himself and the survivor to the one-person raft that had been deployed in the preparation to leave him on scene. Disregarding his own safety, he loaded the injured survivor into the raft and positioned it into the seas. Moments later, a tremendous wave violently swamped the raft, took him under, filled his dry suit with frigid water, and washed the survivor away. Fighting through the raging seas, he pulled the survivor back to the raft and awaited the emergency recovery line. As the helicopter descended between the waves to mere feet above the surface, he connected to the line with his vest, ignored the designed system's limitation, and risked component failure while desperately clinging to the survivor. Threatened by a towering wave, the Coast Guard helicopter ascended rapidly, pulling Pedasso Gage violently from the water, seriously injuring him and separating him from the survivor. On the second attempt, he was violently jerked again as the Coast Guard helicopter maneuvered to avoid another towering wave. This action aggravated his back injury and rendered him unable to hold onto the survivor or help himself. The crew recovered him and battled through severe winter weather to get him to medical attention. Overcoming aircraft equipment failures, physical exhaustion, and severe injury, Pedasso Gage's actions demonstrated exceptional skill and heroism. His courage, judgment, and devotion to duty are most heartily commended in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Coast Guard. Brad, dude, I'm getting chills just reading that, brother. Holy shit.
Yeah, so am I. So am I.
Woo-wee. Okay, well, so you guys get launched out. Vessel in distress. 3 people on board.
Yep.
Game on.
Yeah, so game on, man. So it was about 11 o'clock at night, I think it was, when the initial call came in, and they had an EPIRB going off, and it was, northeast of us, actually close up to Atlantic City's AOR, but Atlantic City couldn't respond because
they
it was
were
so
too far offshore. Yeah. Okay.
Too far offshore. So they would have had only like a minute on scene before they had to turn around and come back. So that's why Elizabeth City launched on it. So we flew out there. When we came into the hangar, we briefed, and when the pilot said, "Hey, okay, we have a sailboat," it took a rogue wave. It did a complete turn, barrel roll, 360 in the water. The mast has broken over on one side, and one person possibly has a broken, I think it was an arm, and broken ribs. And so we came over, I immediately I don't know what I was thinking. I was like, you get called so much, and then it's like, oh, stand down. It was nothing. Yeah. And this was the first time where I had briefed, and it was like, holy shit, this is for real. Like, this is going to be the next 4 hours of my life right now. And we're heading out there to do this. So accept it. And I'll kind of tell the whole story, because I know there's some questions about a quick splice and all this stuff. And there's obviously an investigation, and everything is cleared now. So I can talk about it and everything. And, but we originally were scheduled to fly on one helicopter. And when we ramped for this flight, we were walking out, and maintenance changed our helicopter to another one. So I went in to the cabin and did a quick ALSI checklist of items that I needed for this case, which was, basket, sling, quick drop, everything else, rescue litter, all that stuff. And I made a quick check, and then we were we were starting up, you know. Um, I'll leave it at that. I did not at the time open up the SAR board and look at all the items that were in there. But that aircraft had been inspected that day, had a weekly done on it, and everything was in that aircraft. So I know there was questions about not doing an inspection and not having a piece of equipment. That was untrue. We did have everything we needed to do, and I'll get into actually what happened with that when we're on scene at the case. So
okay,
we took off. We were brief. We had the most experienced pilot that I've ever flown with. Has had numerous cases in Sitka, Kodiak, Elizabeth City, all over. Very well known, awesome pilot. We had a junior co-pilot and a junior flight mechanic, and then I was still pretty junior. I was in my third year of Elizabeth City, so I'd say we're all pretty junior. So we head out there. It took us about 2 hours to fly offshore and up to the northeast to get to where that location was. And I remember seeing, I knew that we were kind of in that storm path of a nor'easter, or at least like a really strong storm. So flying out there, I remember looking down with NVGs and seeing all the streaks on the water and all the white caps. But we never really knew. We knew that there was a rogue wave that flipped the boat, so we knew the seas were going to be fairly large, but we didn't really know what we were getting into. I just remember, like I said, looking out with NVGs and being like, that looks pretty nasty down there. And this was like halfway out there. So they were in the Gulf Stream. And if anybody is familiar with the Gulf Stream, you know, it can be warmer water than what's typically, you know, the water temp of the Atlantic out there. And which also means that it can get pretty nasty out in the Gulf Stream too. So you may see the sea state in a certain area outside the Gulf Stream, and may get in the Gulf Stream at maybe 10 to 20 feet higher than what's showing elsewhere, because it just gets nasty in there. And guys from Elizabeth City and Cape Cod will attest to that. So we get on scene. I think we make it there around 1:00 a.m. It's blowing pretty hard. It's snowing. We couldn't, again, tell how big the waves were, because all we had was just our spotlight going towards the boat, and we saw the mast was over. No one was out on deck. No one was coming up on a radio or anything like that. We just had a dead in the water sailboat sitting there going up and down with the swells. So we started talking about it, and they had asked me what I wanted to do, and at this point, again, this was my first sailboat case. And again, I was a guy that used to sit and study hoist cam footages and talk to guys that would come back from doing sailboat cases. And I knew I was super comfortable. I said, all right, we're going to go down, just harness deploy me. I'm going to swim up to the boat. I'm going to get on the boat. I'm going to talk to him, figure out, probably take the injured guy first, have the other gentleman that's on the boat help me get him out on deck. I'm going to get in the water first, and I'm going to tell him when to jump, and then we'll jump. And then I'll put him in a basket, and then you can either drop the basket back down to me or the bear hook, and then we'll reposition me back over to the area where I can get either back on the boat or just have the guy jump off again, and then we'll do the same thing over.
Super.
It was going to be textbook.
Yeah.
I was so ready, and we had planned it out. It was a good plan. We had ORM'd it. It was going to be risky, but at that point, the seas, they didn't look bad. And again, it was pitch black, it was snowing, so we didn't really know. So I get down, I'm harness pulling it down, release from the hook. I swim over to the boat, super easy. I let the current, the winds take me right, I went upwind of it. So basically, well, the wind pushed the boat to me. So I got to the boat super quick, got right to the back where there was a ladder, and managed to just get right on the boat. It was simple. And then, hearing Drew's story, how he like took a swell and he like pretty much did a flip on the boat. Like I could definitely see how that would have happened if I had maybe had a larger wave at that time where I was trying to get on. But maybe was in between sets and pretty much just got right on the boat. I was like, man, all right, cool. This is working out great. I put my head down in the cabin. There's 3 people down there, all huddled together, shivering. There's water in the cabin, sloshing around. They're all okay, seem to be, and they're ready to get the heck off that boat. So it wasn't an option for us at that time. Like, oh, you guys are doing okay. Let's wait till the morning. Like they wanted off that boat. They could have had another rogue wave and they would have been underwater, or that boat would have just completely smashed apart. So they all wanted off. We were there to get them off. So the oldest gentleman, I wanted to take him first because I could allow the gentleman that didn't have any injuries to help me get him off. So we go out on deck, and that's when I kind of realized, once I was on the boat and felt the up and down and the wind of how bad the waves were at that point. And so I made the decision, I went off the port side, the same side that I had just swam. I had taken the current to, because that was the only side that the other side had the sail and the mast sitting in the water. There was debris everywhere.
Got it.
So hindsight,
you're not going to jump into a bunch of, but I get that, because you don't want to be jumping into a bunch of debris, because then you get wrapped up in something. And
Yep. Hindsight now, I probably would have maybe gone to the bow and jumped off, but I'll tell you why in a second, because as soon as I jumped into the port side, I immediately started being pushed towards the boat. And I was like, oh shit, that was a bad idea. But all right, I got to get this guy to jump, and I got to tow him around either the fantail of the boat or the bow of the boat, just to get out of this current pushing me towards this boat, and then having it slam down and knock us out.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah. So obviously the starboard side would have been a better side to go over, but there was a sail and rigging and broken masts everywhere on that side. And that's why I chose the port side. So I got in the water. I said, all right, I'm going to tell you when to jump. And when I do, you got to jump. And he jumped right away, which is great. I got him, put him in a carry. And then it was like, Jason, it was like a fight for my life just to tow him around either the back of the boat or the front of the boat, because the current was pushing so strong and the wind was pushing me into the boat, where I was kicking as hard as I could and I was going nowhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, this was a horrible idea. Like, I'm gonna get smashed by this boat before I can even get this guy in the basket. So I try going aft first, and I'm going nowhere. Like, I can't even get around the boat to the aft side. So then I switch and I try the front. I'm like, maybe there's more current taking me to the front. So I start buddy towing him to the bow of the boat. And this is just to get around the 40-some foot boat. I can't even tow. It was pushing me so hard. I finally make it around the bow, and the boat disappears as super fast. They had to be going 10 knots. So the light of the boat just got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it's gone. Didn't see the boat anymore. So now it's just me and this guy, pitch black, and we're waiting for the basket. So I brief him and I say, all right, here's the deal. I'll put you in the basket and get you up there, and give him the whole spiel and all that stuff. And he was like, okay, sounds good, and super strong dude. Like, you could tell he had a broken arm, broken ribs, because he grunted a couple times. But we waited for the basket. Basket came down. And just as I was about to put him in the basket, I just look up. You want to make sure you're in a good position. They're not like flying over and now you're on the left side of the helicopter. So I just happened to look up and it looked like they were flying away. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And so I let go and the basket just, oof, and all of a sudden it goes underwater and it jerked so hard. And then it eventually came out from underwater and it swung and did all of its thing in the air. And I was like, holy crap. Like if I had put him in that basket, it would have snapped his neck or taken him underwater and waterboarded. I don't know what would have happened. So I'm like, well, I'm glad I didn't put you in the basket right there. That was intense. Okay, let's wait for it to come back. Well, they were off in a hover for minutes now, and they weren't coming back in. And I was like, okay, like, let's make another approach, guys. Let's get this guy out of here. And in the meantime, I'm now realizing what kind of sea state I'm in because I'm going up very tall, coming back down, and up to the point where I lose the helicopter, the lights of the helicopter, and then I'll come back up and then lose them again. And then a couple were even starting to crumble at the top. And so we would get smashed from behind us because now the waves are coming from behind and I can't see anything. It is pitch black. So we got smashed, rolled a couple times, come back up. Yeah, clear the mask, put the mask back on, snorkel. Hey, you okay? Oh, yeah, yeah. They're still sitting out there in a hover. And after one of the waves took me underwater, and then I look up and the basket's not there anymore. So I think, shoot, all right, what's going on here? Where's the basket? And they had cut it because that wave that had taken it out of my hand and shock loaded the cable so much, it had partially severed the cable. So, shit. But I didn't know that at the time. So I bring my radio out, the old M72. This is before in-ear headsets or anything like that, where the comms are a lot better. And I start coming up and I said, hey, what's going on? Where's the basket? And all I can hear was like, and we're going up and down, waves are hitting me. So I'm trying to talk and at the same time and ingesting water in my mouth every time I spit out my snorkel. So the radio was like useless. I couldn't hear a single word they were saying. I don't think they were hearing what I was saying. So I put the radio back in. I remember telling them, I think at that point I was like, well, or no, I waited. So then I saw the life raft and the DMB come out.
And that's the one-man life raft that we carry for.
Yep.
That the helicopter deploys in case we need to be left on scene.
Yep. And that is the leaving rescue swimmer on scene emergency procedure is you throw out that. So I saw that come out.
First thing that goes through your head is, you son of a bee.
Yeah. That's the first thing. Well, yeah. The first thing I thought was they didn't throw it right on top of me. They threw it like 20 yards away. And now I have to tow this guy over to go get it. So I swam over to the life raft. I got it inflated and I put him in the life raft. And I remember the really sad thing was he asked if this was the basket and I had to say no. I said, but we're gonna try to figure it out, man. This is a life raft and I'm gonna put you in it, so now we're waiting. I come up on the radio again and there was a reason that they obviously sent that down and I thought they were about to leave me. And so I come up on the radio and I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I remember yelling and saying, but you guys better hook up the fucking ERD because I am not staying out here because I won't make it, So, excuse me.
It's good, man. It's good. It's good. Yeah. It's good. It's solid.
So they came back and again, I couldn't hear anything. Radio was useless. And so put it back in. We're getting beat up again. We're taking a couple more waves. I think one of the write-ups said one of the waves threw him out of the life raft, and
Yeah.
it did. So we took a huge wave over the top of us, and he got thrown out, and the life raft, and like all three of us got separated. And so I had to swim towards him, get him, tow him back to the RSLR1, the life raft, and then put him back in. And again, like came up, and they're just still hovering there. And I'm just waiting at this point. I don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden, I see a huge silhouette fall from the helicopter. And I was like, what the heck was that? That was what I found out later. They jettisoned the 120 tank, because that was, I think, what had caused the cable to partially sever as well.
Okay.
Because it got stuck between it. So the 120 tank on the MH60, it sticks about halfway out, or maybe like a third out of in the way of the door. Yep. And you have the 120 on the right side of the helicopter.
And that's the larger tank. So real quick for everybody that's listening, on the H60 of the Coast Guard Jayhawk, you've got 2 internal tanks on the inside of the helicopter. Then we have 3 external tanks, 2 on the left, 1 on the right. The one on the right, we usually have, I can't remember the size of it, but you can put
so that usually an 80, tank. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have this 80, which is a smaller tank. It's out of the way of the cabin door when you're hoisting. Mm-hmm. But if you go long range, you can put that 120 on to give you that extra bit of fuel. So that's what we're talking about right now.
Yep. So that's what they jettisoned into the water to give them more room to set up for the ERD. Now let's rewind, because I know people are going to be asking, well, what about the quick splice? And that was the famous line from this whole case was, you didn't do a proper pre-flight, you didn't have a quick splice, and that's what happened and why you guys weren't able to get this guy. Well, the flight mech got the quick splice out, I think, after all was going down, when the basket got cut. And to my knowledge, from what I remember, is he sat it on the life raft right there on the MH60, which sits right by the door. And he turned around to do something to keep like connecting equipment or eyes in the cabin, and turned around, and it wasn't there anymore. And he thought it had slipped off the raft and out the cabin door.
Holy cow.
So he thought we didn't have a quick splice, and that is why they started connecting the emergency recovery device, which is, I'll explain what that is. It's basically a sailing capsule, like winch style, manual winch style, to a very thick static climbing rope, like Fremantle rope.
Yep.
So there's not much give to it. It's a static line. It's not a dynamic line. And it goes up to like a traction pulley that's connected on by a carabiner to where the hoist would be. There's a little eyelet up there that you would connect on. And so it basically, once you engage that traction pulley, you're only able to take slack out. You cannot give any more slack back out to the load. And that's going to become important here in a second. So he laid out all the cable down to the water's edge, and then engaged that traction pulley. So now he's only able to take slack out, and he can't deliver anymore to me. And then he puts 3 turns on the winch and gets ready for me to hook in. And then basically they would come up in altitude away from the waves, and then he would continue to winch me up. Well, the ERD has been only tried in a training environment. It had never been an operational use until that night. So we didn't know. We'd only used the ERD in flat calm seas. It used to be where you did not put a sling on it. After our case, now you put a sling and a weight bag on it as a part of the procedure. And that was for the reason what's going on right now. So they delivered that hook down. My intention was to get hooked into that and basically grab onto him and physical grip him as much as I could up until he can hoist us back into the cabin. Hindsight now, yes, I Monday morning quarterback the shit out of myself and realized I should have called back or asked for the sling and then at least have flotation form and something that would make the hook float on top of the surface. And that was why I brought that up in the safety investigation was there needs to be a sling on the end of that hook, because then you can just leave it in the water and then you can pay out more rope if need be and kind of do like a catenary style. Because when you're playing in heavy surf, if you try to do just direct plumb hoists, then it's not going to work. You need to have some sort of catenary style and give slack and let the power of the waves take you under, and then you're going to keep, and that's what we teach at AHARS at the heavy seas is you give yourself room and let the waves take the swimmer and survivor to you before you take that load, you know? Yeah. So if you try to hoist completely vertical and a wave comes underneath you, it's going to push you and it's going to shock load you. So he drops that hook down to me. Well, I'm in 40-foot seas. So every time that hook gets close to me and the waves come up 40 feet, 20 feet or whatever, that hook drops down 20 feet under the water. And I still have him buddy towing around. And so I'm pulling up rope to try to find the end of the hook so that I can hook into my Triton. And then the wave drops out underneath and it gets yanked out of my hand. So they spent about 20 minutes just trying to get the hook to me while I was in the water. Because it just kept going 40 feet down and then it would get ripped out of my hand. 40 feet down, ripped out of my hand. So finally we find a time where I can get hooked in to the hook. Get hooked in. I turn to the guy and I just said, grab onto me as hard as you can. And I wrap my arms around him. And then I look up and the exact same vision I had of them flying away when I was about to put them in the basket, it looked like that exact same moment. So I look up and it just looks like they're flying away. And I look down at the rope and I was like, here we go, shit. And it just goes pink. And I just get launched out of the water. I end up going over him, not able to hold on because you're being pulled by a helicopter at that point. Right. You're at the mercy of the helicopter on a static line that gives no dynamic stretch or anything. I remember the vision I had was that scene in Star Wars where they go to light speed or wherever and all the stars go super fast because it was snowing out. So all of a sudden I see the snow ahead of me dropping and then all of a sudden it was just that light speed. And I bent in half, like pretty sure the back of my head touched my fins. And I'm flying through the air and then I hit the water and I start just tumbling. They're still pulling me and I'm doing somersaults on top of the water, skipping. And then I land in the water and I look back up and it's just a game at this point. And I'm just the end of, I'm a doll at this point. So I look up again, they look like they're flying the other direction. And I just, boom, get launched out again, flying through the air and hit the water again, just keep somersaulting. And we did this 3 times, I think. And
what the heck, dude?
I finally make it kind of close to the survivor again. And I remember I'm trying my hardest just to swim over to him to try one more time of just like grabbing onto him. And I couldn't even make it to him before, again, just getting blasted out. and I just told myself I wasn't going to unhook, because I knew if I unhooked, then it would have taken another 20 minutes to get hooked in again. So that was the decision making in my head. I don't know. I could have released and kept myself from getting injured and thought of another idea, but I just told myself that moment, I'm not unhooking from this hook, and I'm going to get this guy. And then I just never got back to him. And there was one point again where a wave came and took me under. And this was a long time. I was underwater for what felt like eternity, getting tossed around, not knowing which way is up. And I'm still connected onto the erg line at this point. And I remember making it, and that one took everything. I lost my mask, my snorkel, ripped my mask right off my head. All I had was the strap dangling in the back. And so now I'm just gasping for air in all of this whitewater and bubbles. And I remember after that wave had taken me, when I made it to the surface, I look up and it looked like I could touch the main landing gear. It was literally right there. And
holy shit, dude.
They had came probably within 5 feet of the water in between sets to come down to take all that slack out. And then that's when they just pulled max power and took me straight up, and got me out of that situation. And that's when I remember looking up at the flight mech, who was, he's still just doing the manual winch to try to get me up. And I was dead at that point. I remember everything hurt. I had water all in my dry suit. And he finally got me up to the top, because that's a long evolution too, to try to manually winch someone. It could take 8 to 10 minutes on a hook, depending on how much line you have out. And that's one of the reasons that they came down so low, because he took all that slack out. And
the winch off the top of my head is a 1-to-1. Like you can crank right or left, or counterclockwise or clockwise. And one of them is a 1-to-1, and then the other one's like a 4-to-1 or something like that.
It's easier one direction than the other. So some guys use the technique where they do this, where they push it back and forth to and that's on like really heavy loads and stuff. But yeah, I'm a light dude, so he probably was able to winch me up quicker. But so yeah, made it back up into the cabin, and the first thing I asked the flight mech, I just said, "Where is the quick splice?" And that's all I wanted to do, is be able to use the quick splice to go back out to get this guy to bring him back in.
Holy cow, dude. I love the mentality.
And he said, "We don't have one." And I remember when he said that, I just thought, this is on me. Like I just killed this whole case, because I didn't know, I didn't pre-flight, I didn't put my hands on a quick splice, and this is all on me now. And I didn't know at the time that he was saying we don't have one because he thought it fell out the cabin door. He just said, we don't have one. And that's when I just gave up. Like I could have like free fall back in there, but I wouldn't have made it. There's no way I could have gone back in there and survived another couple hours until another helicopter could come back out for me, and so we made the decision to get me medical attention. And we knew, so Cape Cod had been launched. We had a C-130 flying overhead from Elizabeth City. We had both the Alpha and Bravo crews of Atlantic City going out there. They were launched because our crew called back to sector and said that we have our rescue swimmer in the water and we're unable to retrieve them. So that's why they get launched. They came out just for self-rescue for me. The C-130 dropped flares. They dropped the life rafts, everything to try to give this guy the best chance of survival. And the Cape Cod bird ended up coming out, I don't know exactly how long after I was on scene, and picked up the gentleman that was in the water, but he had he had deceased. He didn't make it. So
Oh,
um,
man. I'm sorry, dude.
yeah. So I remember the flight back was very somber. It was the worst feeling in the whole world. I remember getting nauseous and I threw up everything that I had ingested. So I had biohazard all over the cabin. I was trying to throw up in my fin, like kind of like Drew was saying, and it wasn't doing anything. I pretty much just was throwing up on myself. And I was laid out. I wasn't in a seat. I was just laid out on the ground because I couldn't move my legs at the time, not very well, and I thought I'd seriously like paralyzed myself or something. Uh, um, so after all the adrenaline had run out, that's when like my whole body just locked up from being jerked. Um, so we flew to Atlantic City, um, and they had an EMS ambulance on deck waiting for me. Um, they got me to EMS, cut my dry suit off, got me to the ER, did X-rays, MRIs, all that stuff, and I didn't like hurt anything and break any vertebrae or do anything, but I had a severe strain in my lower back area that was super swollen back there. It took me a few weeks to even be normal again back there, but I was okay. But that didn't matter. It just that was the worst possible feeling in the world to me.
Oh, man. You know what? Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. So it took a while, man. It took a while to come back from that, and I'm still, as you can tell, like not good, but
You've done well, my friend. You really have. Like, I want you to think about this for a second and just
yeah,
take your mentality from that case, right? You've come back from that and went on to do amazing things.
yeah.
That's impressive. That is really impressive.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was a long road to get through, and obviously it was a Class A mishap because we had uh, a death, and so that investigation got started, and and I'm trying to take care of myself personally and have time off from work is when I had to go in and I had to give interviews and all this stuff, and it was hard. It was a hard road for a third class to have to go through, and I didn't have any experience in any of this, and I had some guys in the shop that were really good to me, like like Drew was an amazing mentor and helped me through a lot of that stuff, and other guys, and I got SISM like right when we got back. So basically, a C-130 had to come pick us up in Atlantic City a day later with our whole crew, um, and so when we landed back in Elizabeth City, I remember like the CO was there, the chief for the shop I think was there, the senior chief, and then we just got pulled straight into a room for SISM, and all I wanted to do at that point was go home and sleep. And
Yeah.
so that was hard for me to open up then. And fast forward, you know, 15 years later, how long it's been, is now I'm a SISM peer, and so it's
Awesome.
cool to get back to guys that have kind of gone through similar things, and I do things a little bit different. You know what I mean? I know from experience now that guys may not want to open up to you right away, so it's a good tip and technique for any SISM peers out there that to just keep following up with your guys and your girls, and make sure a week later, 2 weeks later, month, year, that they're still doing okay. Because SISM is not just for right afterwards,
Right.
because a lot of emotions can occur years later, um, and it's just how it goes. No one can figure out the mind like that. But that's kind of what happened with our pilot too, is he ended up getting pretty bad PTSD years later, and retired out of there. But yeah, so it still sticks with me, and it did for a while. I had some other cases and even training events that sparked the emotions I had that night. I had like a surf ops day in Oregon, and we were doing directs, and I was just the survivor in the water, and a huge set came in, and I was in a dry suit and couldn't get under the wave when it came through, and pretty much I went into a tumble motion like I did that night, and I immediately went back to that moment of being tumbled, and I freaked out, and I gave the emergency signal to the crew, and I was just a survivor in the water, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get some shit for giving this, and it's all good. I mean,
Yeah.
It's what happens, your brothers messing around with you and stuff like that. But I was like, I went right back to that night, Jason, and I was like, that's how like PTSD works, man. It's like all of a sudden, it's like you're right back in that moment, and that's how I felt that day, just on a training event. No, I was fine. I just like got tumbled around in the waves and lost my mask, but I was fine. I could have swam to the beach and been all right, but for some reason, just it all hit me again, and so anyway, that's just crazy how that stuff works. But yeah, so I ended up going through the whole investigation for that case, and they when we landed in Atlantic City, the chief or some representative from the East City shop called Atlantic City and asked if they could go out and try to look for the quick splice, and they found it, and it was behind the LRU-25, the life raft on the 60. So it was still on board, but it had fallen when he thought it fell out the cabin door. It had slid behind the raft in the corner back there under the starboard. So, and that's
out of
what
sight, totally out of sight. So
didn't know,
yeah,
but
yep.
But that's hard to hear too, because then it was there, but it was all done, and nothing you can do about it then. So, but
wow, Brad,
that's my story, dude. Yeah,
that is one hell of a story.
so.
I'll tell you what, man, and I'm going to say it again. You have gone on to do an incredible career with 20 years in the Coast Guard, rescues and lives saved since then. Like you've done an amazing job. Well done.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
I truly mean that. Like I'm not boasting you right now. I truly mean that. You have risen way above. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's good to have your brothers by your side and stuff like that, and I think that's just as good as therapy, for having a close shop like that and close knit dudes, and it's the best brotherhood you could ask for in this job. And
totally
love all the guys I work with, and I hope that one day if they go through the same thing that I can be there to help them out too and talk them through. But yeah, so it's funny when Drew was saying that you dream about having a case like that your career, when you're a young third, you're so gung-ho about getting an opportunity to do something like that and heavy seas and all that stuff. And after that night, I was like, I'm good. I almost hung him up, dude. I was like, I'm not even cut out to do this job, dude. And it took me a while to kind of gain that confidence back, and yeah, but it was a road.
Yeah. I'll say the same thing now that I said to Drew, is like, you want that as a third class. You want that third class or any of the guys. You want them to want that case. Like, I don't wish it on anybody. I certainly don't. But if
No
you
way.
don't have that mental drive, the I want to go get it, then you'll have quitters, and they won't. They're the ones that don't make it through swimmer school,
Yeah.
hands down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, just having the mental strength to get through something like that, but also, my job now is on the stand team and a AHRS instructor is I use what I learned from that case and all my other cases, and I get to teach that to guys now that are open ears, and listening in class and I hope that what we teach out there can prevent something like that, and then next young third class that I teach and he goes back to his home unit and he gets launched for a sailboat in distress and 40-foot surf. And then he's going to know, okay, let's give a little slash of the cable and let's let the waves take the power of the waves underneath the helicopter as opposed to away. And it's just, yeah, it's good technique, but I hope that I can save a life by providing this information to young guys in the future by teaching this stuff now. And that's why being an AHRS instructor is, yeah, it's the pinnacle of the career, man. I was telling you earlier, it's just, there's no other better job to teach what you've learned to these young guys. And they're so stoked to come out there and learn and to get in those heavy seas. And it's a chaotic environment, but it's controlled. We're there, yes. We're on the RWCs, the skis out there, and we're ready to come pick someone up if there's a hoist jerk and stuff. But yeah, allowing guys to and push them to their limits out there is awesome. And I hope that everybody has a chance to go to that school. And because I had been before this case, but it was weird. Like I didn't think about that the night before or that night of the case of what we needed to do to prevent the cable from jerking. I was thinking of the timeline of events that I needed to do. Like, okay, get this guy off, put him in a basket, yada yada yada. Yeah. And like the flight mech hadn't been to AHRS, the co-pilot hadn't been to AHRS. I think the pilot definitely had, but sometimes pilots go in the beginning of their career and don't ever go, and they could forget some of those techniques later on. So, but it's important stuff to learn and teach out there. That's my plug for AHRS.
Dude, I love it, man. Brad, that is one hell of a story. Wow. I can't thank you enough for walking us through it and debriefing us with us. That's awesome. Like, and yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And technology has come a long way, and now we're starting to implement the Atlas, which is a different recovery device now for emergency, and the ERD's going to become a legacy. And the Atlas I've trained on here at ATC, and it has a battery control, and you can still hoist up and down with it. So hopefully it'll prevent jerks in the future if you have to use it. But yeah.
The aircraft I fly on now has a dual hoist.
And that's another thing.
Yeah.
Why doesn't Coast Guard have dual hoist? I don't know. Couldn't tell you. But that would have prevented everything that night too. So yeah, man.
Oh man. Deep breath, my friend. Wow. Yeah. Well, let me like I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to.
You haven't asked any questions about it either, so
I've been totally engrossed in the story. Like I get it. I haven't been in that same situation, so I can't relate entirely to you. I get you can't see anything with pitch black, and all of a sudden you're just a bobber in the ocean, and it is that's hard because you can't see what's coming. Wow, just wow.
Yeah, buddy.
Some of the things that let me talk about this ERD for a minute for those that don't quite understand. In the ERD, when you're talking about the aircraft lowering down to as closest to the water, I actually remember training on that when I was a young swimmer. and all the flight mechanics, when they would get hoist qualified up in Kodiak, they had to use it. At one point or another in their training, they had to use it. So at one point or another,
Yep.
I was going to be on an ERD.
Yep.
It was going to happen. And I specifically remember them coming down to like landing gear almost in the water, getting as close as they possibly could. I don't know if that was ever even talked about in 40-foot seas. Like the idea and the training, like, and I can see this too, and we do this, I'm guilty myself, where you start training something in a very benign environment. You're like, wow, this is a great idea. This is going to work great. Right up until you put it in 40-foot seas.
Exactly.
Like, ooh,
Yeah.
I can think of, actually, because you're on Stan Team, I'm going to pick on Stan Team for a minute.
Yeah, do it.
While I was in Kodiak, like there was gear that would come out, and I know Stan Team would test it, but it wouldn't work in Kodiak. Like whatever it was like nobody thought about freezing ass cold weather in the middle of a mountain in the middle of nowhere. And oh yeah, by the way, that doesn't work. I'm like, oh yeah. So it's that outside. It's like the idea, hey, let's do a quick fix or something, and then anyway, I like the conversation piece. I like how that comes up. So
yeah. And to my knowledge, they've never had to use it again operationally, and even during training. So it used to be probably when you were in, we had the double Prusik knot.
Yeah.
That was on the pulley up there. And that was what held as your safety line in case you got jerked. That would snag, just as you would use that for like a ropes rescue belay system, the double Prusik knot. So that failed on a training flight. I want to say maybe Claude Morrissey.
Mighty Claude.
Yeah. So
a beast of a man.
So they had to figure out another method. And that's when that kind of like Petzl traction pulley came out. But even then, since you've been out, we don't do any more live body ERDs. It's all with a dummy, because I think it failed on another occasion during a training environment too. And so they went ahead and just X'd it, that we don't do any more live ERDs. So that's the thing. If you don't train for it, you may not know what's going to happen on a real night, So I've always been a big component of train the way you fight. And if something happens, that's when you're going to know, like, okay, we need to fix this, or because you're never going to have a mishap happen when you're putting Oscar on the end of a line like that and coming down to 5 feet and picking him up and hoisting him in the cabin. It teaches the procedure to flight mechs, but not all the ifs, ands, or buts. So it's not until you put it in that situation, you're going to find out that this is a horrible device to use 40-foot seas.
Can you throw me a rope ladder or something? Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, I'm sorry that happened to you, brother. I really am. But I'll say it again. My hat's off. 20 years. You're in the Coast Guard. That's pretty badass.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, it's been a heck of a good ride, dude. And I've had, you reading those other cases too. I had some great cases out there, but it's always it's the rough ones that stick with you,
Oh yeah.
And there's been a number of those, but it doesn't put a shadow or dark cloud over the career, and it's been an awesome career, man. So stoked I did this route when I was 21,
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I'll tell you what, dude, before I let you go, on a positive note or whatever you want to leave at, like a happy feeling, either I'm gonna leave it up to you. One of two things. Either A, leave us with a funny story, something that happened to you. And then throw in your advice that you would pass on to everybody else. Just before I let you
go. Funny story?
Yeah.
I don't even know. I mean, just being in the office or the shops every day, just you get to hang out with the best dudes in the world, man. There's so many good stories out there. I can't really think of one. Probably I'll tell a funny story that happened in East City one time. So we used to try to just scare people all the time. So you'd have your days crews and nights crews come in.
Okay.
And so I decided, we had this big Vidmar drawer that had all the C-130 O2 masks that were all piled in there, all different sets. Well, I took them all out and put them elsewhere in the corner of the shop, and I was going to get in this. I could fit into this drawer, and we were going to wait for Mike Ackerman to come in on nights, and the guys were going to say, "Hey, Mike, do you mind grabbing me an O2 mask out of there?" And I was just going to be in there and scare the heck out of him, you know. And it was going to be great. We were so excited. Well, I get in there, and at that time, the CO, Admiral, XO, all these dudes came and strolled in our shop for a tour. And I'm in this Vidmar, and I remember, I think it was Jeremiah Loescher that was like, he came over and whispered, and he's like, "Don't freaking move." He's like, "Don't say anything. Don't move." He goes, "There's admirals in here right now." And I was like, oh, God. And there, I could hear him talking, and I'm just in this Vidmar, like, scrunched up, can hardly move in there, have no space, running out of air. And so they start messing with me. So they start grabbing cups of water and opening up the Vidmar that's above me, and they're reaching down behind the drawer and starting to dump water on me while I'm in there. And I'm like, "God dang it, you guys stop." And they're like, "Shh, don't say anything." And so we had to wait till the admirals left, and I didn't even get to scare Ackerman. It was such a waste of time. But anyway, that's my funny story about
Oh my God, that's awesome.
The shenanigans that go on in AST shop. But there's tons of stuff. Good stuff. But the admirals never knew I was down there, which is good.
They do now.
They do now. But yeah, if you ever were at East City back then taking a tour of the AST shop, there was a guy hanging out in Vidmar. Gosh, man. I would say advice for young swimmers and stuff, man, just kind of like where this conversation went. Take care of yourself. You know, take care of yourself physically. You know, obviously we work out a lot and we keep our bodies healthy, but mentally too. Keep yourself mentally strong and mentally fit, and whatever you do to help you out by doing that, you know, find your avenue. And everybody's a little bit different, you know, but and if you need help, get help.
Get help. My email is out. Get in touch with me. Yeah, I know Brad right here is to get in touch with him.
Yeah, I'm a citizen peer. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. You can talk to really anybody, but yeah, if you've had a rough case and want to talk about it, or you just want to have something on your mind, talk about it. But otherwise, it's going to stick with you, and it's going to haunt you, and it's going to come out one day. And yeah, just take care of yourself physically and mentally. That's my advice I'll give you. But yeah, the Brotherhood's awesome, and they'll help you out with that too. So love it, man.
Love it.
Thanks for having me on, Quinny, man. This has been fun.
Brad, this has been a blast. I know we've like emotions of every aspect of this, and thank you for sharing. Oh my gosh, it's awesome. Yeah, I look forward to. I'm gonna call you when I get back to the States, and we're going to get a beer for sure.
Heck yeah, man. Yeah, come out to Ahars and come hang out with the crew up there, or get you on the back of a ski or something.
Don't tease me. I might. Yeah, you just send me the dates. I just might show up.
All right, let's do it, man.
Dude, I love it. Thanks, brother. I'll see you later. Yeah. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of here. Go. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Real Rescue Podcast. Please take a minute to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. I'm pulling chocks and taking off. But before I go, if anyone out there has a rescue story they would be willing to share, I would be humbled and honored to have you on as a guest. Or if you have any questions about rescue or anything else we talk about here, send an email to jason@therealresq.com. That's Jason at TheRealResq.com. You can also check us out on our web pages, therealresq.com, our Facebook page, and our Instagram page @TheRealRescue. Again, a special thank you to all of you staying on the watch today. Always remember, when that SAR alarm goes off, those in distress are praying for a miracle. They are going to get you. Until next time, fly safe, and swim hard.